Let me tell you the story of how my CEO tried to fire me. Publicly. Just to cover up the fraudulent numbers he approved. And how I sat there quietly watching him lie through his teeth. Waiting for the perfect moment to end his entire career, the right way. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the truth in the right room. The mahogany conference table felt cold under my palms as I stared at Bryson Hale's face. Our CEO stood at the front of the boardroom, his silver tie perfectly knotted, his expression carved from stone. Around me, 12 senior executives sat frozen in their leather chairs, eyes darting between Bryson and me. I didn't understand why I'd been summoned to this emergency meeting until Bryson opened his mouth. Maddie Turner has demonstrated gross negligence in her financial analysis, he announced, his voice echoing off the glass walls. Her errors have jeopardized our quarterly projections and damaged investor confidence. My stomach dropped. The PowerPoint behind him displayed numbers I'd never approved. Revenue figures inflated by millions. Profit margins that didn't exist. My name sat at the bottom of the slide in bold letters, claiming authorship of data I'd fought against for weeks. Effective immediately, Ms. Turner is terminated for cause, Bryson continued, sliding a folder across the table toward me. We have documented proof she deliberately sabotaged our financials. The room spun. This couldn't be happening. 6 weeks earlier everything seemed normal. I sat at my desk on the 14th floor, reviewing the Q4 revenue spreadsheet for the third time that morning. The numbers looked wrong. Not wildly off, just subtly inconsistent with the data I'd compiled from our regional offices. At first I blamed the accounting software. We'd upgraded systems in October and glitches happened. I pulled up the version history. The file showed 3 revisions after I'd submitted my final report. My pulse quickened as I clicked through the changes. Someone had manually adjusted the figures, increasing projected revenue by $38 million across 4 product lines. I scrolled to the approval log at the bottom of the document. The digital signature glowed on my screen. Bryson Hale, CEO. Approved December 3rd, 11:47 p.m. My hands trembled as I saved screenshots. This wasn't a software error. This was deliberate manipulation. And my boss had signed off on it personally. That afternoon I drafted an email to Bryson. I kept my tone professional and curious, not accusatory. I attached the version history and asked if he could clarify the adjustments made after my submission. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe I'd missed something during my analysis. I hit send and waited. Hours passed. No response. The next morning I sent a follow-up, this time copying my direct manager Patricia Ng. Just wanted to make sure this didn't get lost in your inbox, I wrote. Happy to discuss the discrepancies whenever you have time. By noon Patricia appeared at my cubicle. Her face looked pale, her usual smile nowhere in sight. She glanced around nervously before leaning close to my monitor. Maddie, I need you to drop this, she whispered. Stop asking questions about the numbers. Trust me on this. It's not worth it. Her eyes pleaded with me to understand something she couldn't say aloud. When I opened my mouth to respond, she shook her head and walked away quickly. I spent the next 2 days questioning my sanity. Maybe I'd misunderstood the situation. Maybe the adjustments were standard procedure I didn't grasp yet. I'd only been financial analyst at Titan Ventures for 18 months. Perhaps senior leadership operated differently than I expected. On Thursday afternoon, a folded note appeared on my keyboard while I was at lunch. The handwriting was unfamiliar, the message brief. You're not crazy. Conference room B. 4:30. Come alone. It was signed with just 2 letters, ER. I recognized those initials. Evan Royce worked in data security, 2 floors below mine. We'd never spoken beyond polite elevator greetings. At 4:30 exactly, I found him waiting in the empty conference room, blinds drawn, door closed. He's done this before, Evan said without preamble, sliding a USB drive across the table. System logs from the past year. Same pattern. Numbers altered after analyst approval, always right before board presentations. Before I could ask questions, Evan stood abruptly. 3 days, he said. I'll be unreachable for 3 days. Don't contact me until Monday. He left me alone with the USB drive burning in my palm. Friday morning HR called. The email arrived at 8:03 a.m. marked urgent. Mandatory performance review today at 2 p.m. My annual review wasn't scheduled until March. This felt wrong. I arrived at HR at 1:58 p.m. Vanessa Clark from Human Resources sat across from me with a legal pad covered in notes. Her smile was tight and rehearsed. She started with generic questions about my workload and stress levels, but then the conversation shifted. We've received some concerns about accuracy in your recent reports, Vanessa said carefully, not meeting my eyes. Multiple executives have noticed inconsistencies that required correction. My throat went dry. What inconsistencies specifically? She flipped through papers that I couldn't see. Nothing concrete yet, just general feedback. We want to make sure you're not feeling overwhelmed. Are you struggling with the workload? Do you need additional training? Every question felt like a trap. The meeting lasted 45 minutes, and I answered honestly while my instincts screamed that this was the beginning of something terrible. Monday arrived with artificial normalcy. I tried accessing the financial database at 7:30 a.m. to continue my quarterly analysis. My login failed. I reset my password. Failed again. A red error message appeared. Account locked. Contact IT support. Called the help desk. After 20 minutes on hold, a board technician told me my account had been flagged for security concerns. No, he couldn't tell me what concerns. No, he couldn't restore access. Someone from management would contact me. At 11 a.m., I cornered Bryson in the hallway outside his office. He was checking his phone, barely acknowledging my presence until I spoke his name twice. I need to discuss the Q4 numbers, I said firmly. And my database access. His expression transformed from distracted to cold in an instant. He stepped closer, invading my personal space, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Not everything needs your opinion, Maddie. Focus on your assigned tasks. That evening, another analyst whispered to me by the elevators. The CEO ordered your lockout personally. I heard him tell IT you were a security risk. For 3 days, I worked on meaningless tasks while my database access remained suspended. I organized old files. I updated templates. I felt like a prisoner in my own job. Other analysts avoided eye contact, sensing I'd become toxic somehow. Wednesday afternoon, Evan finally reappeared. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He didn't speak to me directly, but he left another note taped inside my desk drawer. They know I gave you the files. Be careful. That night at home, I plugged in the USB drive he'd given me. The logs were damning. Bryson had manually altered financial projections 17 times in the past 14 months. Each time corresponded with major board presentations or investor meetings. Each time the changes inflated revenue or minimized losses. Each time a different analyst had been blamed for errors afterward. I wasn't the first person he'd thrown under the bus. I was just the latest. I started taking screenshots of everything. Email threads, version histories, system logs. I saved files to 3 different cloud accounts. I documented dates, times, and every conversation. Thursday morning I was summoned to another closed-door meeting. This time both Vanessa from HR and our CFO, Keith Drummond, waited in the conference room. The atmosphere felt funeral. Keith wore his most serious expression, glasses perched on his nose, fingers steepled. We need to discuss irregularities in your recent work product, Keith began, sliding a printed report across the table. I recognized it immediately. It was my Q4 analysis, but the numbers had been changed. The altered version, the one Bryson had approved secretly. This report contained significant errors, Keith continued. Errors that could have cost the company millions if they'd reached investors. I didn't approve those numbers, I said clearly. That's not my final version. Vanessa's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Your digital signature is on the file, Maddie. Are you saying you didn't submit this? They showed me the metadata. Somehow, my username appeared as the last modifier. My fingerprints were all over fraudulent data I'd never touched. Instead of panicking, I went home and got methodical. The Navy veteran who lived in the apartment below mine used to say, "Emotion loses wars. Documentation wins them." I'd never understood that until now. I created a timeline in a private notebook. December 3rd. Bryson altered my report. December 5th. I questioned the changes. December 6th. Patricia warned me. December 7th. Evan gave me historical evidence. December 8th. HR's trap began. December 12th. Database lockout. December 14th. False accusation meeting. Every date had supporting evidence. Screenshots, emails, witnesses, the USB logs from Evan. I organized everything into clearly labeled folders. I backed up the files in 4 separate locations. If they were building a case against me, I was building a fortress of truth. At 11:47 p.m., an email arrived from an anonymous sender. They're planning to terminate you before the quarterly review. You have less than a week. I didn't sleep that night. I planned instead. Friday afternoon my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Maddie Turner. This is Harrison Vex from Cornerstone Analytics. Your name came up through our professional network. We have a senior analyst position opening, and we'd love to discuss it with you. The timing felt too convenient. Was this another trap? Or genuine opportunity? I agreed to a coffee meeting the next morning, keeping my guard up. Harrison turned out to be legitimate. Mid-50s, kind eyes, genuine interest in my background. We talked for 90 minutes about financial modeling and corporate ethics. I didn't mention my current situation directly, but he seemed to sense something. We've heard good things about your integrity, Harrison said as we finished. That quality is rare in this industry. Companies that value shortcuts over honesty don't last. His words felt like validation I desperately needed. He promised to send over details about the position within a few days. I left the coffee shop feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Monday morning, Bryson personally assigned me a new project. He appeared at my cubicle with a thick binder. His smile predatory. I need a comprehensive market analysis for the Westbridge acquisition, he said, dropping the binder on my desk. Full competitive landscape, financial projections, risk assessment. Due Friday morning. I flipped through the binder. This was at least 4 weeks of work. He was giving me 5 days. The numbers he wanted me to project were wildly optimistic, bordering on fantasy. This was another trap, designed to make me fail or compromise my standards. I took a breath and made a decision. I appreciate the opportunity, but my current workload won't allow me to deliver quality work by Friday. I'd hate to submit something rushed that doesn't meet our standards. I documented my refusal in an email, copying Keith Drummond politely. Bryson's jaw clenched as he read my response, but he couldn't object without admitting the timeline was impossible. The trap had failed. This time. Wednesday evening, Evan appeared in the parking garage as I walked to my car. He looked over his shoulder nervously before speaking quickly. I need to tell you something, he said. 6 months ago, I contacted an external auditor about the suspicious numbers. Someone found out. They threatened to fire me and destroy my career if I pursued it. I backed down like a coward. He handed me another USB drive, this one labeled, Encrypted Password. Integrity 2024. These logs show Bryson accessing the financial system at night, always the evening before major board presentations. They show him manually changing numbers under admin credentials. Your case isn't isolated, Maddie. It's systematic. My hands shook as I took the drive. Why are you helping me now? Because someone has to stop him, Evan said. And because I couldn't live with myself if I stayed silent again. He disappeared into the shadows between cars before I could thank him. The next morning I discovered something that made my blood freeze. While reviewing system access logs on Evan's new drive, I found entries showing admin-level changes made under my username. Changes I never authorized. Changes I never made. Bryson had somehow requested elevated access using my credentials. Every fraudulent edit now appeared to come from my account. My digital fingerprints were stamped all over manipulated data I'd never touched. I immediately documented this discovery with screenshots and technical explanations. But my heart sank as I realized how cleverly he'd framed me. To anyone investigating superficially, I looked guilty of the exact fraud I was trying to expose. That afternoon, Vanessa from HR emailed. Final performance review scheduled for December 22nd, 9 a.m. The same day as Bryson's major investor presentation. The same day he'd need to present his fraudulent numbers to potential buyers. They were planning to silence me permanently before I could interfere with his big moment. That night I broke down. Sitting alone in my apartment, the weight of everything crashed over me like a wave. I'd worked so hard to build my career. I'd graduated top of my class, earned my certifications, spent countless nights mastering complex financial models. Now a corrupt CEO was destroying everything because I refused to be his accomplice. I cried for 20 minutes, allowing myself that release. Then I washed my face, made tea, and opened my laptop. Self-pity wouldn't save me. Evidence would. Strategy would. Truth would. My phone buzzed with an email from Harrison Vex. Great news, your offer letter is ready. Cornerstone would love to have you join our team in January. Starting salary significantly above your current role. Please review and let me know your thoughts. I read the offer 3 times. The salary was 40% higher than Titan Ventures paid me. The benefits were better. The company culture emphasized ethics and transparency. It was everything I'd hoped for. I signed the offer letter at 11:34 p.m. Whatever happened next, I had a safety net. I had nothing left to lose. The next morning felt different. Lighter somehow. I'd accepted my new job. My evidence was organized and backed up. I protected myself as much as possible. Now I could focus on the counterattack. I spent hours refining my documentation. I created a clean, professional presentation showing the original numbers versus the altered versions. Side-by-side comparisons with dates and digital signatures. Proof of Bryson's systematic fraud spanning 14 months. While researching board member backgrounds, I discovered something interesting. Lorraine Casper, one of the senior vice presidents, had pushed for stronger financial controls 6 months ago. Her proposal had been voted down, but her concerns were documented in meeting minutes. She'd questioned the sudden improvement in quarterly projections, wondering if the numbers reflected genuine performance. Lorraine had been suspicious of Bryson for months. She just hadn't found proof yet. I had that proof. The question was whether she'd listened to a junior analyst about to be fired. I drafted an email requesting a private meeting. My finger hovered over the send button for 5 full minutes before I finally pressed it. Lorraine responded within 2 hours. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. Coffee shop across from headquarters. Come alone. The next morning, I arrived 15 minutes early, clutching a sealed folder containing copies of all my evidence. Lorraine appeared exactly at 7 o'clock, wearing a sharp navy suit, her gray hair pulled back severely. She ordered black coffee and gestured for me to sit. For 45 minutes, I walked her through everything. The altered numbers. The USB drives from Evan. The systematic pattern over 14 months. The trap being set for my termination. I spoke calmly, presenting facts without emotion, letting the evidence speak for itself. Lorraine listened in complete silence, her expression unreadable. She took notes occasionally but asked no questions. When I finished, she closed her notebook and studied my face for a long moment. The investor presentation is Thursday, she said finally. Bryson will present the fraudulent projections to potential buyers worth $200 million. If these numbers are lies, this company faces legal and financial disaster. She stood to leave, then paused. You'll attend that meeting. As the analyst who built the original financial model, you have every right to be present. I'll make sure security allows you in. Thursday morning arrived. December 22nd. My final performance review was scheduled for 9 a.m. Bryson's investor presentation started at 9:30 a.m. I dressed carefully in my best suit, carrying both my termination documents and my evidence folder. I walked into the boardroom at exactly 9 o'clock. Bryson stood at the front, his PowerPoint already displayed behind him. The 12 senior executives who would determine my fate sat around the table, including Lorraine, who gave me the briefest nod. Maddie Turner has demonstrated gross negligence in her financial analysis, Bryson began, his voice confident and cold. The words from my nightmare 6 weeks ago were finally being spoken. He detailed my supposed errors, displayed the altered numbers with my name attached, painted me as incompetent and dangerous. Vanessa from HR slid the termination folder toward me. We have documented proof she deliberately sabotaged our financials, Bryson concluded. I opened my mouth to defend myself when the boardroom door opened. Lorraine stood, her voice cutting through the tension like steel. Before we continue, we need accurate numbers. Real numbers. Not the fantasy projections you've been selling. The room went silent. Bryson's confident expression flickered. Lorraine turned to me directly, ignoring Bryson's attempt to interrupt. Ms. Turner, did you prepare the Q4 financial analysis? Yes, I said clearly, my voice steady despite my racing heart. And is the report currently displayed behind Mr. Hale the same report you submitted? This was my moment. 6 weeks of fear and preparation had led to this single answer. I met her eyes. No, it is not. Gasps rippled around the table. Bryson's face flushed red. That's absurd. Her name is on. I have the original financials right here, I continued, pulling the folder from my bag. I slid it across to Lorraine. Unaltered. With complete version history showing every change made after my submission. Lorraine opened the folder slowly. The numbers inside told a very different story than the PowerPoint behind Bryson. Projected revenue was $38 million lower. Profit margins were honest. Risk factors were properly disclosed. It was the truth he'd tried to bury. The other executives leaned forward, trying to see the documents. Whispers started. Keith Drummond, the CFO, requested his own copy. The tension in the room shifted entirely, no longer focused on my supposed failures but on Bryson's increasingly obvious lies. Bryson tried to regain control. This is ridiculous. Maddie is clearly lying to save her job. Those documents could be fabricated. Then let's check the system access logs, Lorraine said calmly. She gestured to her assistant, who had been waiting outside. Pull the complete audit trail for the Q4 financial database. Every access, every edit, every approval. I want timestamps and user credentials for the past 2 months. Bryson's confident facade cracked. Sweat appeared on his forehead. That's unnecessary. We're wasting valuable time. The boardroom door opened again. Evan Royce walked in carrying a thick stack of printed documents. He moved with quiet determination, placing the papers in front of Lorraine. Complete system logs as requested, ma'am, Evan said. These show admin-level access to financial documents on December 3rd at 11:47 p.m. Manual edits increasing revenue projections by $38 million. All changes made under CEO credentials. He turned to look at Bryson directly. All changes made by you, sir. The whispering grew louder. Executives pulled out phones, checking calendars, comparing dates. The evidence was undeniable and damning. Bryson had been caught in a lie that could destroy the entire company. Bryson's composure shattered. His usual commanding presence evaporated as he stammered explanations that made no sense. This was market strategy. We needed to project confidence to investors. You don't understand the pressure. The pressure to commit fraud. Lorraine's voice cut like ice. She held up the comparison documents. You inflated projected profits by nearly 40%. You did this 17 times over 14 months. And you attempted to frame a junior analyst for your crimes. Keith Drummond stood abruptly. Bryson, these numbers were presented to the board. We made strategic decisions based on fraudulent data. Do you understand the legal implications? Other executives chimed in, their voices overlapping. Questions about previous quarters. Demands for full audits. Mentions of SEC violations and shareholder lawsuits. The meeting had transformed from my termination into Bryson's reckoning. I sat quietly, watching the man who'd tried to destroy me scramble to save himself. Lorraine caught my eye and gave me the smallest nod of approval. Justice was happening. Truth was winning. The system, corrupt as it seemed, was finally working. Mr. Hale, please step outside, Lorraine said firmly. The board needs to discuss this matter privately. Bryson looked around the room desperately, seeking an ally. He found none. Even Keith, who'd participated in my interrogation weeks earlier, wouldn't meet his eyes. Bryson gathered his papers with shaking hands and left, the door closing behind him with finality. Vanessa from HR immediately tried to push my termination forward. Regardless of these new developments, Ms. Turner's performance review stands. No, Lorraine interrupted. It does not. Ms. Turner is protected under federal whistleblower statutes. Any retaliation against her for reporting financial fraud is illegal. This termination is void. Vanessa went pale. She looked at the termination papers, then at me, then back at Lorraine. I was following proper procedure. You were following orders to silence a witness, Lorraine said coldly. This meeting is over. Ms. Turner, please wait outside while we continue our discussion. I stood on shaking legs, gathered my folder, and walked out of that boardroom with my head held high. In the hallway, I found Bryson pacing near the elevators, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice desperate as he spoke to someone about lawyers. 20 minutes later, Bryson cornered me by the water cooler. His confident CEO persona was completely gone, replaced by something that looked almost pitiful. He glanced around nervously before leaning close, his voice urgent and pleading. Maddie, please. We can fix this. I'll give you a promotion, a raise, whatever you want. Just tell them you made a mistake, that you misunderstood the situation. I looked at him calmly. This man had tried to destroy my career to hide his crimes. He'd manipulated data, framed me for fraud, and nearly succeeded in erasing me from the industry entirely. Now he stood before me begging for mercy he'd never shown. I didn't ruin you, Bryson, I said quietly. You did that all by yourself. The moment you altered those numbers, you set this in motion. I just refused to go down with you. His face twisted with anger and fear. He opened his mouth to respond, but security guards appeared at the end of the hallway. Lorraine must have called them. They approached us professionally, asking Bryson to come with them. I watched him walk away between two guards, his expensive suit and perfectly knotted tie looking absurd now. Power was so fragile when built on lies. By noon, the entire office knew something major had happened. Whispers spread through cubicles and break rooms. Speculation ran wild. I returned to my desk to find sympathetic glances from colleagues who'd avoided me for weeks. Patricia Ing appeared, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Maddie. I knew something was wrong, but I was afraid. I should have supported you. I accepted her apology, though the sting of her betrayal still lingered. Fear made people do cowardly things. I understood that intellectually, even if emotionally it still hurt. At 3 p.m., Lorraine's assistant delivered an official memo to the entire company. Bryson Hale had been suspended pending a full investigation into financial irregularities. An external audit firm would review all quarterly reports from the past 2 years. Employees were encouraged to report any concerns to the board directly. At 3:47 p.m., security escorted Bryson out of the building with a cardboard box containing his personal items. I watched from my window as he crossed the parking lot, no longer the commanding CEO but just another disgraced executive. Vanessa from HR sent me an apologetic email, formally withdrawing my termination and offering to discuss making this right. I deleted it. Some things couldn't be fixed with corporate apologies. My exit interview happened the following week. I'd already given notice, accepting the position at Cornerstone Analytics. Lorraine personally conducted the interview, which was unusual for someone at her level. "I want to thank you," Lorraine said as we concluded. "What you did took courage most people don't have. You could have walked away quietly, protected yourself, let someone else fight this battle. Instead, you risked everything for the truth." Shrugged. "I just didn't want to be complicit in fraud." "That's exactly what I mean," Lorraine smiled. "Integrity is rare, Maddie. It's easily spoken about but rarely demonstrated when the cost is high. Don't lose that quality, no matter where your career takes you." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter of recommendation that glowed with praise. "For your new employer. Though I suspect they already know they're getting someone special." Word of my situation had spread through the company. Colleagues I barely knew stopped by to wish me well. Some apologized for their silence during my ordeal. Others shared their own stories of witnessing Bryson's manipulation over the years. I'd become an accidental hero, though I didn't feel particularly heroic. I'd just done what seemed right. My first day at Cornerstone Analytics was January 8th. The office was smaller than Titan Ventures but felt warmer somehow. Harrison Vex personally welcomed me, introducing me to colleagues who treated integrity as a baseline expectation rather than a rare commodity. That evening, scrolling through news on my phone, I saw the headline, "Titan Ventures CEO resigns amid financial irregularity investigation." The article was brief, professionally vague, mentioning an internal audit and pending SEC review. Bryson's name would forever be linked to fraud. His reputation destroyed by the very lies he'd used to build it. 3 days later, a journalist contacted me through LinkedIn. Someone had leaked details of the board meeting. They wanted my story, wanted to write an exposé about corporate fraud and whistleblower retaliation. Politely declined. The truth was already out. Justice had been served. Bryson had faced consequences. I had a fresh start at a company that valued honesty. The world didn't need the dramatic details of his downfall. I'd already won the only victory that mattered. I'd kept my integrity when staying silent would have been easier. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about refusing to be destroyed. It's about standing firm when pressure mounts, documenting truth when lies surround you, and trusting that eventually, evidence speaks louder than power. I didn't need Bryson's humiliation published in newspapers. His exile from the industry was enough. I'd moved forward, and that was the sweetest victory of all.